How male misogyny is affecting younger men, particularly in secondary schools. In recent years, misogyny among younger men has become an increasing social concern, particularly within secondary schools in the UK. Misogyny can be defined as prejudice, discrimination, or hostility toward women, but its impact extends beyond those it directly targets. Increasing evidence suggests misogynistic attitudes are also harmful to the boys who adopt them, shaping their emotional development, behavior, and educational experiences. Influenced by social media, peer pressure, and rigid gender norms, some boys are developing what sociologists describe as hegemonic masculinity, the idea that men must be dominant, emotionally restrained, and powerful. While these attitudes may appear to offer boys status, they often create emotional restrictions, social pressure, and unrealistic expectations that ultimately harm their development. Let's get into it. One of the most significant recent influences on misogynistic attitudes is social media, particularly the rise of online masculinity influencers. Figures such as Andrew Tate have been widely discussed in the UK following concerns from teachers about boys repeating misogynistic language in classrooms. Adolescence is a critical period for identity formation, meaning boys may be particularly vulnerable to messages that promise confidence, success, and respect. These influencers often present simplified solutions to complex problems, suggesting that men's struggles are caused by women or feminism rather than broader social or economic issues. From a sociological perspective, this reflects gender socialization, where young people learn gender expectations through media and culture. However, while these messages may appear empowering, they often reinforce harmful emotional restrictions. For example, boys may feel pressure to hide vulnerability or avoid seeking help, which can negatively affect their mental health. Therefore, rather than empowering boys, misogynistic online cultures may actually make them more emotionally isolated. Additionally, misogyny can create pressure within male peer groups in secondary schools. Boys may feel encouraged to demonstrate masculinity through dominance, sexualized language, or disrespect toward girls in order to gain social approval. This reflects what sociologists call toxic masculinity, where traditional masculine traits such as strength become harmful when combined with emotional repression and aggression. This can create a restrictive social environment where boys who show kindness or emotional openness risk being mocked. As a result, boys may suppress empathy in order to fit in. This is significant because emotional intelligence is essential for forming healthy relationships and managing conflict. Therefore, misogyny may limit boys' personal development by discouraging important social skills. However, it could be argued that schools have always contained elements of sexist behavior and that current concerns may be exaggerated due to increased media attention. Some may also argue that most boys do not hold extreme misogynistic beliefs and that the behavior of a minority is being generalized. While this counter-argument has some validity, research from teachers suggests the issue is not simply about extreme beliefs, but about the normalization of sexist language and attitudes. Even if boys do not fully believe misogynistic ideas, repeated exposure can desensitize them to disrespectful behavior. Therefore, the concern is not just radicalization, but gradual cultural normalization. Another important impact of misogyny on boys is its effect on mental health. Traditional masculine norms often promote emotional stoicism, which can discourage boys from discussing struggles such as anxiety, loneliness, or academic pressure. This reflects the sociological concept of normative masculinity, where boys feel pressure to conform to socially accepted masculine behavior. This can be particularly harmful because statistics consistently show young men are less likely to seek mental health support compared to young women. If boys internalize the belief that vulnerability equals weakness, they may cope through anger, humor, or withdrawal rather than communication. This demonstrates a key paradox. Misogyny often presents itself as promoting male strength, but it can actually reduce boys' ability to cope with emotional challenges. Misogyny can also affect boys' attitudes toward education. Some forms of masculine identity associate academic effort with weakness, particularly in environments where status is gained through risk-taking or disruptive behavior. This can lead some boys to disengage from schoolwork in order to maintain peer approval. This reflects sociological discussions about anti-school subcultures, where some boys may reject academic success as incompatible with masculine identity. The long-term consequence is that boys influenced by these attitudes may reduce their own future opportunities. Therefore, misogyny may not only harm social relationships but also indirectly harm boys' life chances. Despite these concerns, it is important to recognize that masculinity itself is not the problem. Many boys demonstrate positive masculinity based on respect, responsibility, and emotional resilience. Increasingly, schools are attempting to promote what researchers call positive masculinity, which encourages confidence without dominance and emotional strength without suppression. For example, relationship education programs now aim to teach consent, respect, and emotional communication. This shows that misogyny is not inevitable but socially learned, meaning it can also be socially challenged. Ultimately, this debate highlights a wider issue about how society defines masculinity. If boys are only offered narrow definitions based on power and control, some may adopt harmful attitudes. However, if boys are encouraged to see masculinity as including empathy, cooperation, and emotional awareness, they are more likely to develop healthy identities. In conclusion, misogyny among younger men in secondary schools is not simply an issue of boys harming girls, but also one of boys harming themselves through restrictive gender expectations. Influences such as social media, peer pressure, and traditional gender norms can limit boys' emotional expression, damage their educational engagement, and shape unhealthy relationship attitudes. While not all boys are affected equally, the growing concern among educators suggests the issue deserves attention. Addressing misogyny, therefore, should not be seen as criticizing boys, but as supporting them to develop healthier, more flexible identities. If schools and society can promote broader definitions of masculinity, boys will be better equipped to succeed emotionally, socially, and academically. Ultimately, challenging misogyny is not just about preventing harm, but about allowing young men the freedom to become more emotionally complete, socially capable, and psychologically resilient individuals. Thank you all for watching. See you all next time.